My name is Nicole Harper. I'm 26 years old, and I've just moved back to Austin after graduating with a finance degree from the University of Chicago. For the first time in 4 years, I am standing in front of the house. I grew up in Ashford Lane. Pale blue porch white shutters and a yard that always smelled like lavender when the wind shifted right. There's a soft buzz in the air from the cicadas. The Texas sun is low but still hot, slanting across the driveway in golden lines. I drop my suitcase on the first step, roll my shoulders, and reach into my pocket for the brass key I've carried on a chain since the day my mom gave it to me. "This is yours always," she had said, her fingers curled around mine as she handed it over during one of her last good days. The metal is warm from my palm. I press it into the lock and turn. Nothing. I frown, try again. Slower this time. The key slides in fine, but the lock resists. The mechanism doesn't budge. I step back and look up at the door, suddenly aware of a thin strip of bright black around the knob. A keypad. There's a new keypad lock installed just below the deadbolt, one of those modern ones that you program with a code and unlock with your phone. It wasn't there when I left at the start of the semester. I try the brass key once more, then jiggle it gently. It still won't turn. My pulse quickens. I glance around. The porch swing is missing. The potted rosemary that used to sit in the corner is gone. Replaced with two gray planters of tidy shrubs that look like they belong in a staged home listing. The lavender lining the walkway is dead, completely shriveled as if no one's watered it in months. This doesn't make sense. I set my suitcase down and knock, first gently, then harder. My hand shakes a little. I knock again, waiting for the sound of footsteps, or maybe Lily's voice calling out from the kitchen like she used to on holidays. Nothing. I press the doorbell. It chimes a soft digital tone that feels too cheerful, too strange. Still nothing. I take out my phone and scroll to Dad's number. It rings once, twice, 5 times. Then voicemail. I hang up and try Rachel straight to voicemail. I call again this time, leaving a message. "Hi, it's me. I just got in. I'm at the house, but the key isn't working. Did something change? Can someone let me in?" I hang up. I don't know whether to sit or stand. I step down from the porch and walk along the front path toward the side window. The curtains are drawn. I cup my hands against the glass and peer in. The living room is unfamiliar. The old brown leather couch Mom used to nap on is gone. The rug is different, and the picture frames on the mantel where our family photos used to be are filled with new faces. I feel it then, a quiet unease settling beneath my skin, the kind that doesn't come from surprise, but from slow realization. Something isn't right. I sit down on the porch steps, staring at the brass key still in my hand, the same one I've used since I was 16, the same one I held when I locked the house for the last time after Mom's funeral and left for school, promising myself I'd come back stronger. The key used to fit. Behind me, a car passes down the street. A dog barks. The wind shifts, but the house stays still. I try Rachel one more time. Straight to voicemail, I text Dad at the house. "Locked out. Please call." No response. I don't know how long I sit there before I start to feel the weight of it. It's not just the deadlock, it's the missing porch swing, the replaced plants, the curtains drawn too tightly. It's the silence. This place used to feel like an anchor. Even after Mom passed, it still smelled like her lavender and citrus cleaner and a hint of her chamomile tea. Now it smells like nothing. Like the door forgot how to open for me. I stand again, not sure what I'm supposed to do next. I think about walking around back, but the gate is locked too. I walk to the end of the porch and look down at the garden bed. Mom's garden. Her herbs, her tiny tomato patch, the stones she painted with my name when I was 8. Gone. Just dirt and trimmed hedges now. My phone buzzes. A text from a friend in Chicago asking if I got home safely. I stare at it for a moment, unsure how to answer. Finally, I type back here, but something's wrong. I put the phone in my pocket and lean against the railing. It's the same porch, the same blue steps, but it feels like someone else's house. And for the first time since the funeral, I feel the sting of being uninvited. I thought I was coming home, but now I'm not sure I belong here at all. The front door creaks open slowly just as I'm about to knock again. Rachel stands in the entryway. Her blonde hair is pulled back into a neat twist, and she's wearing a soft gray robe like she just stepped out of a spa. She doesn't look surprised to see me, more like inconvenienced. "Oh," she says flatly as her eyes scan me from head to toe. "Nicole, you're early." "Early. I told Dad I was coming today," I say, keeping my voice even. "I texted this morning." She steps aside, not exactly inviting me in, but not blocking the way. Either I drag my suitcase across the threshold, the wheels bumping over the lip of the doorway like they don't belong here either. The air smells different. Gone is the faint trace of lemon and chamomile, the scent my mother always loved. In its place is something colder, peppermint candles and whatever Rachel sprays around the house that reminds me of department store lobbies. I stop just inside the hallway and look around. The house is unfamiliar. The rug in the foyer has been replaced with a modern black and cream design. The old photo wall, the one that used to hold pictures of me and my mom from every school recital and summer road trip, is now filled with frames of Rachel, Dad, and Lily graduation photos, birthday dinners, a beach trip I was never invited to. I glance at the hallway wall. My favorite picture of Mom in her garden, kneeling beside her lavender bushes in a straw hat, is missing. Rachel shuts the door behind me and turns the lock with a smooth click. "We updated the locks a few months ago," she says too casually. "There were a few break-ins in the neighborhood. It was just safer this way." She smiles, but there's nothing warm in it. I glance at the new keypad and nod. Once I don't ask why no one told me I already know the answer. From the corner of my eye, I see movement in the kitchen. My father appears holding a coffee mug, his shoulders stiff. His hair's a little grayer than the last time I saw him, and his eyes flick to mine, then away again. He doesn't speak right away. "You made it," he says finally. "We weren't sure when you'd be here." "I've been texting," I say. He clears his throat and gestures toward the living room. "Come sit, I'll get you something to drink." "No, I'm okay," I reply. I follow them in suitcase in hand and take a seat at the edge of the couch. But even the couch isn't the same. The cushions are different. There's a pile of throw pillows in pale pinks and tans, the kind Mom would have called soulless. Rachel sits across from me, legs crossed. She folds her hands in her lap, perfectly composed. "So, the house," I say, after a moment I wasn't expecting all the changes. "We just made it more functional," Rachel says quickly. "I mean, with Lily in school and us both working from home. Some days it just made sense to personalize things a bit. You were away. We didn't want it to feel abandoned." The word lands sharply, abandoned. "This isn't just a house," I say quietly. "It's Mom's. She left it to me." Rachel tilts her head slightly. "Of course, and we never questioned that. We're just keeping it warm for you, Nicole. No one's taking anything." Her smile is thin, practiced. My father returns with his coffee and sits in the armchair across from me. He avoids my eyes. "Dad," I say gently, "did you tell Rachel this house was yours?" There's a long pause. He exhales, slow and deliberate. "After your mother passed, things got complicated. Rachel needed security." May have said that the house was part of the family trust, that it wasn't finalized. My jaw tightens, but I don't move. "I saw the will," I say. "It's under my name." "Yes," he says, "I know, but I didn't want to scare her." Rachel jumps in, voice syrupy again. "John just meant we'd all look out for each other. You've got your career now, and we figured this could be a shared space until you're settled." I glance down at my hands, fingers knotted tightly in my lap. The house. The place where I learned to read. Where Mom and I planted herbs on Sunday mornings. Where we sat after her first chemo appointment, sipping tea in silence because words felt too heavy. Now it feels like a stranger's living room. I look around slowly, memorizing what's gone. The painting from Mom's bedroom, the antique clock from the mantel, the worn quilt she kept folded at the end of the couch. All replaced, all erased. Rachel rises to her feet. "Let me show you the guest room. We set it up in Lily's old study just until you figure out your next step." Guest room. Not my old bedroom, not even the spare room down the hall. Guest. I stand quietly. "No need," I say, "I'll figure it out." My father opens his mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. Rachel walks ahead, already halfway down the hallway, assuming I'm following. I don't. I stay in the living room, the hum of the refrigerator in the background, the peppermint scent thick in the air. I stare at the place where my mother's photo used to hang. The silence presses in. They didn't just move in. They moved me out. And I let them. Until now. I used to think that when a parent left, they at least gave you something to hold on to. A reason, a promise, a goodbye. But when my father left, it was a Tuesday afternoon, and all he left behind was the faint sound of a suitcase zipper and the quiet click of a door that didn't slam. I was 10. My mom and I were in the kitchen slicing apples for a pie that never got made. He didn't yell, he didn't cry, he didn't say a word, just walked out like he was going to the store and forgot to come back. We waited at the dinner table that night, just the two of us, before Mom finally stood up, took his plate away, and said, "I guess it's just us now." And from then on, Mom was everything. She was sharp and warm in the same breath, the kind of woman who clipped coupons with surgical precision, but made you feel like the world still had magic. She worked as an accountant for a small medical group, always neat with numbers, even neater with time. She never missed a school play or a parent-teacher conference. She packed my lunches with handwritten notes tucked inside. Some days I came home to find the house smelling like lavender and lemon music playing softly, her voice humming under her breath. She bought the house on Ashford Lane before she ever married my father. She told me that when I was 5, during one of those nights when the power had gone out and we lit candles in the living room like it was a holiday. "This place is ours," she whispered, pulling the blanket tighter around us, "no matter who comes or goes. This is home, Nicole." And I believed her. After the divorce, Dad stayed away for months. Then came the new woman, Rachel. She worked in marketing, had perfect posture, perfect teeth, and a way of making everyone feel like they were being evaluated. Her smiles were always a little too measured. When they invited me over the first time, it was for dinner. I remember walking into the rental home they shared in Round Rock, modern, sparse, and cold like a showroom. Rachel greeted me like a polite guest. She offered sparkling water, not hugs. And then there was Lily. She was barely 1 when I met her pink-cheeked and giggling arms flailing as she tried to crawl toward a stuffed bear. She looked nothing like me, but had my dad's eyes, that same mossy green that could either soothe or scare, depending on the day. I wanted to love her. I wanted her to feel like a sister. But love doesn't bloom in places where you're made to feel like you're intruding. Every visit felt like walking through someone else's life. Their kitchen conversations never included me. Rachel would ask if I was managing okay at Mom's, then turn to Dad and say, "We need more almond milk," as if I hadn't answered. Dinner was always the same. Rachel talked, Lily babbled, Dad occasionally grunted. I would sit quietly sipping from a glass I hadn't asked for, pretending I wasn't counting the minutes until I could leave. They never said it, but it was clear I didn't fit. The guest room was always made up when I stayed overnight, but it never felt like mine. My things stayed in my backpack. Rachel always reminded me to make sure the door's locked behind you or use a coaster on the side table. Little things, but they added up. Back at home, Mom never let me feel like I was missing anything. She made space for my feelings without asking for them to be spoken. When Lily turned 5, I bought her a picture book about animal families. I wrapped it in brown paper and tied it with string. Rachel didn't unwrap it in front of me, said Lily was too tired and would open it later. They never said thank you. By the time I was 16, the visits slowed. I stopped asking. I focused on school, my friends building something stable, something that felt like mine. The one constant was Mom and the house on Ashford Lane. When her diagnosis came ovarian cancer, we both pretended not to panic. She met it with the same quiet order she brought to everything. She made lists, called lawyers, taught me how to file taxes while the smell of antiseptic hung in the air. One night near the end, she handed me an envelope. Her hands shook slightly. "If anything happens," she said, "this proves it's yours. Don't let anyone tell you different." Inside was a notarized copy of her will, a letter and a small lavender sachet she had sewn herself. The letter was short. "Nicole, you are not less than anyone. You are not behind. You are not invisible. This house is your beginning. Hold on to it if they try to take it." After she died, I kept that letter in a tin box behind my dresser drawer, nestled between old report cards and childhood drawings. One of them still hangs folded and faded on the fridge. A crayon sketch of me and Mom in the garden with a big sun and stick figure lavender. No matter how far I drifted from Dad or how cold Rachel was, that drawing always reminded me I had once been seen. And somewhere deep down, I still believed that mattered. It takes me the rest of the day to get up the nerve to speak to my father. He's out in the backyard when I find him standing by the grill with a pair of tongs in one hand and a dish towel slung over his shoulder like he's hosting a summer cookout. Rachel is inside humming as she chops vegetables on the kitchen island like she owns the rhythm of the house now. "Dad," I say, stepping onto the deck, "can we talk?" He doesn't look up at first, just flips a chicken breast and nods toward the patio chairs. "Sure." I wait. He wipes his hands on the towel and finally turns, squinting at me in the sunlight. Rachel appears at the sliding glass door a moment later, carrying a tray of lemon slices and a pitcher of iced tea. "I'd rather speak with him alone," I say, as politely as I can manage. Rachel's eyes widen slightly. "There's no need for that. Nicole, anything you need to say, we can all talk about it." I glance at my father. He gives the smallest shrug. I take that as my answer. We sit around the patio table. The cushions are new. I notice that even the umbrella overhead has changed, neutral beige, instead of Mom's faded floral pattern. I fold my hands in front of me. Why doesn't my key work anymore? Rachel sets the pitcher down gently, as if the question requires a delicate answer. "Oh, right. We had to update the locks last fall. There were a couple of break-ins nearby. It was just safer that way." "No one told me," I say. "No one even asked." "Well, you were away at school," Rachel replies, her voice light but firm. "We figured you didn't want to worry about house logistics from 3 states away. Honestly, we've just been keeping the place going for you." I stare at her, unmoving, keeping it going. She leans forward slightly. "Nicole, I know this is hard, but the house was empty for months. John and I talked it through. It made sense for us to move in. Lily's school is closer, and you weren't coming back full time." "It's my house," I say, my voice quiet but steady. Rachel blinks, then nods slowly like she's trying to be reasonable. "Of course, but I think maybe there's been a little confusion." She stands and disappears into the kitchen. When she returns, she's holding a manila folder. "I knew we'd need this eventually," she says, opening it with a little sigh. She pulls out a document and places it in front of me. "We've been trying to make sure everything stays fair and official. This," she taps the page, "is the tenancy transfer form. You signed it just after your mother passed. It gave us temporary rights while you were finishing school." I look down at the paper. My name is printed near the top, and below it is a signature that's supposed to be mine. "It's close. But the loop in the L is too sharp, and the way the H in Harper curves, it's wrong. I've been signing that name since I was 13. I'd know if it was mine." And the ink, pale blue. My father always used a fountain pen with blue ink. I look at him. "Did you sign this?" He doesn't answer right away. He shifts in his chair, glances at Rachel, then stares out at the yard like there's something more interesting in the hedges. "You weren't living here," he says, finally. "We were just trying to keep things moving. Rachel wanted to feel like this was her home too. I didn't think it would matter." "It does matter," I say, softer than I mean to. Rachel lays a hand over the folder and smiles tightly. "Nicole, we've paid the taxes. We've handled the maintenance. We didn't ask you for anything, if anything. We've saved you a lot of trouble." I nod slowly. My fingers rest near the edge of the document. I don't touch it. The backyard feels too quiet, like it's waiting for something to fall. I think about the house, the inside that no longer holds my scent, the garden that no longer grows my mother's herbs. I think about the photo wall missing every trace of my face. I look down at the guest slippers neatly placed by the sliding door. Not my size. "I never signed this," I say. "This signature isn't mine." Rachel's mouth opens, then closes again. She lets out a soft laugh, the kind you use when someone's being unreasonable. Maybe you just forgot. It was a hard time for all of us. "No," I say. "I remember exactly what I signed and what I didn't." My father still won't look at me. I stand. I think I've seen enough. Rachel pushes her chair back, standing too. Nicole, don't be like this. We're a family. We're trying to support each other. I don't answer. I walk through the kitchen past the fruit bowl that used to be filled with oranges, but now holds colorless decorative spheres. I pass the hallway where my drawings used to hang and find only framed quotes in cursive font. The front door opens easily, and when I step outside, it feels like the only thing that hasn't been changed without my permission. I close the door behind me. The air is hot, the sun just beginning to drop behind the trees. And in my hand, the pale blue ink has smudged slightly onto my fingers. The days began to blur. I woke up early, left for work, came home late, and moved through the house like a visitor tiptoeing through a borrowed space. Nothing was overtly said, but everything had shifted. My toothbrush was moved to the downstairs bathroom. The second shelf in the fridge where I used to keep my lunch containers now held Lily's yogurt pouches and energy drinks. The kettle I had used since high school was pushed to the back of the cabinet, replaced by a digital espresso machine I was never taught to use. At dinner, there were always 3 plates on the table. Just 3. Rachel never said why. She always smiled that cool, composed smile and asked, "You already ate, right?" Even when I hadn't. Lily didn't call me Nicole anymore. She mostly just said her as in, "Mom, is she still using the guest bathroom?" or, "Did you ask her to clean up after herself in the office?" One night, she passed by me in the hallway and muttered, "Some people just freeload and think it's normal." I turned, but she was already upstairs. I didn't respond, not out loud. I started packing away my mother's things quietly. The scarf she wore every spring went back into the cedar box in my closet, her journals, her recipe binder, even the faded print of the Ashford neighborhood map she'd framed and hung in the hallway. I took them down one by one. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I didn't want Rachel to touch them, or maybe I just wanted to remember that something here had once belonged only to me. Every morning I left before sunrise, and every night I returned to a home that felt less and less like mine. The lights were always on. Rachel's voice echoed from the kitchen. Laughter drifted down the hallway like smoke I couldn't breathe in. And then one Friday evening I came home to silence. The house was still. No light in the living room, no shoes by the door, no sound of Lily's music from upstairs. I walked through the entryway, slowly waiting for someone to call out, "Nothing." The dining table was spotless. No dishes, no napkins, just a vase of fresh tulips and a single note resting beneath it. Dinner's in the fridge. But the fridge was empty. The kettle was still in the cabinet untouched. The guest slippers were gone. I checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls. I called my father straight to voicemail. I tried Rachel, no answer. Then I tried FaceTime without knowing why. To my surprise, it rang. And then it connected. Rachel's face appeared on the screen, backlit by palm trees and golden sunlight. Behind her, I could hear the crash of ocean waves and the clink of ice in glasses. She wore oversized sunglasses and a sun hat. "Oh, Nicole." Her tone was flat, not even surprised. "Where are you?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Boca Roca. It's a little resort off the Gulf Spa week. We needed a break. I thought John told you." "No, he didn't." She sighed, adjusting her glasses. "Well, communication's been off lately. Anyway, it's just a week." I didn't answer. She looked into the camera, her voice suddenly lower, smoother. "Nicole, I think maybe it's time we talked about space. This arrangement, it's been stretched. You've got your job now. You're hardly here. And it's just, we're trying to make a life here." "This house is mine," I said. Rachel let out a small laugh. "Come on, your mom. May have left your name on a few papers, but we've built something here. We've paid taxes. We've made improvements. Don't turn this into a fight." Her eyes narrowed, her voice now sharp and clipped. "Just pack up while we're gone. You've got time. Let's not make it harder than it needs to be." And then she ended the call. The screen went dark. I stood there for a long moment, my phone in my hand, the silence pressing in around me like a closing fist. I walked to the kitchen and set the phone down on the counter. Then I opened the cabinets. Every cup was different. The plates were all part of a new matching set. Not a single mug from Mom's collection remained. I turned on the kettle, but the sound felt hollow in the quiet. I sat down at the table with a cup of water I didn't drink. And I realized then it wasn't just that they had moved in. They had been replacing me piece by piece for years. And now they were telling me to leave. Not with force, but with the certainty of people who assumed I wouldn't fight. I looked at the empty suitcase by the front door, the one I had brought with me just a week earlier, still half unpacked. And for the first time since I arrived, I didn't feel like crying. I felt like waking up. The house was quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet in that heavy, unnatural way it gets when something's out of place, but no one will say it. I was sitting on the edge of the guest bed, or rather, the bed in Lily's old study, the one Rachel had so generously offered me as a temporary landing place. The mattress was too firm, and the pillows still smelled like someone else's shampoo. I opened my laptop, not for work, not for a distraction, but because something inside me wouldn't stop whispering, check. Not your texts, not your voicemail. Check your email. I scrolled through hundreds of messages, notifications, promotions, updates from utilities I no longer managed. Then I clicked into the important tab, mostly untouched since my mom passed. There, buried between bank statements and medical records, was a subject line that made my breath catch. My hand hovered over the trackpad. I hadn't seen it before. Maybe I missed it, or maybe I hadn't been ready to open it. Now I was. The message was brief. Dear Nicole, your mother asked that I send this to you 6 months after her passing, regardless of where you were or what you were told. Attached are the official documents she prepared with me, along with her final written note to you. Please know she was clear in her intent. Kindly, Emma Langston, Estate Attorney, Eastside Legal Group. There were 2 attachments, one labeled Final Addendum Plus Deed and another simply titled Mom's Letter PDF. I opened the first. The will was notarized, dated 6 weeks before my mom passed. The deed was in my name, only Nicole Elaine Harper, clear as day. I zoomed in, scrolling line by line. The language was direct and specific. The home located at 104 Ashford Lane shall be transferred in full to my daughter Nicole Harper without condition or shared interest. This property shall not be subject to interpretation as part of any marital estate or joint familial agreement. It wasn't just a standard will. It was written with foresight, with caution, with someone in mind, someone like Rachel. The second attachment opened into a single page, white background typed, but with my mother's signature scanned at the bottom. Nicole, if you're reading this, something has already been taken from you or someone has tried. I want you to remember something. There will always be people who make you feel like kindness is a form of debt, that love means surrender, that family only works if you stay quiet. Don't believe them. This house is yours. It is the one thing I could still give you with certainty. I built our life here. You watered the garden with your little red pail. You read your first chapter book on that porch. You stayed beside me when I could no longer stand long enough to cook. You earned this not because you worked for it, but because you loved me in a way that never asked for return. So if they make you feel like you're asking for too much or that you're being cruel for keeping what was always yours, read this again. The house is yours. Do not let them rewrite the story. Love always, Mom. I sat back in the chair, the glow of the screen reflecting off the blank wall in front of me. Something in my chest unknotted. It wasn't joy, not yet. It wasn't relief exactly. It was permission. I plugged in the printer and fed in a small stack of paper. The documents rolled out slowly, each page warming in my hands. I held the deed first, then the will, then my mother's letter. The words notarized and exclusive ownership felt like armor. It was almost midnight, but I opened my window for fresh air. The wind carried in the scent of cut grass and something faint, just a hint of the lavender that still clung to the soil outside, even after Rachel ripped the plants out. I sat on the floor with the papers spread in front of me. The next morning, I called the number listed in the email. It went straight to voicemail, but I left a message with my name, the address, and a quiet sentence. I need to confirm and secure my legal rights to the property. Please call me back. I didn't rush. I didn't pace. I folded the documents neatly into a manila folder and placed them in the top drawer of my desk. That night, before I went to sleep, I pulled out my mother's old scarf from the cedar box. The one she wore every spring, the one she draped around my shoulders the day we planted the lilacs. I wrapped it around my neck. I didn't cry. Instead, I whispered the last line of her letter to myself until I fell asleep. The house is yours. Do not let them rewrite the story. I didn't rush, that was important. Everything I did over the next 3 days was measured, calm, deliberate. The morning after printing the will and my mother's letter, I made a call to a local locksmith. Not a chain, but a small shop downtown that still used paper invoices and knew how to answer questions without judgment. The man arrived that afternoon. He was older, polite, with sun-tanned arms and a quiet way of working. All 3 locks, he asked, looking up from the old brass knob on the front door. Yes, I said, and the back gate too, if you can. He nodded, didn't ask anything more. When he was finished, he handed me a small cardboard envelope. Inside were 3 brand new keys. You're all set now, he said. I paid in cash. He gave me a carbon copy receipt and walked off without looking back. The first thing I did was hold the new key in my hand just for a second longer than necessary. Then I got to work. Room by room, I began the process of removal. Not destruction, just quiet extraction. In the front hall, I took down the abstract canvas Rachel had hung above the console table and wrapped it in bubble wrap. The shoe rack she'd replaced with a sleek black bench went into the garage. In the living room, I unpinned Lily's school drawings from the corkboard, folded them carefully, and placed them in a box labeled Lily. Personal. I did not rip, I did not tear. I made piles, Rachel's cookbooks, her throw pillows, Lily's bookshelf of pastel paperbacks, the coffee maker I never used. Each item was dusted off, carefully packed, and labeled with a Sharpie Rachel John Lily. I opened the coat closet and found Rachel's scarves hanging beside one of my old jackets. I kept the jacket. In the hallway, I found a framed family photo taken last spring. Rachel, Dad, and Lily smiling in front of the rose bushes. My mother's face was nowhere in sight. I wrapped the frame and placed it gently in the box marked Rachel. By nightfall, I had moved everything to the garage, neatly stacked, nothing broken, nothing touched out of spite. I ordered a basic security camera kit online with overnight delivery. 2 cameras, one at the front door, one at the back. They arrived the next morning and I installed them myself. It felt good to tighten the screws with my own hands, to drill into the walls with purpose. Control wasn't loud, it was quiet, even-tempered. I had learned that from my mother. Once everything was packed, I turned to the rooms that still felt like mine. My old bedroom had become a storage space. Boxes of Lily's seasonal clothes, a few plastic bins marked holiday decor. I cleared them out, swept the floor, and opened the windows to let in the afternoon breeze. In the kitchen, I pulled out my mother's ceramic teapot from the back of the cabinet and placed it gently on the stove. Then I walked to the desk in the corner of the living room and opened the manila folder. I took out the printed will, the deed, and my mother's letter and placed them together in a sealed envelope. I slid the envelope under a small paperweight, a brass sparrow my mother once kept on her bookshelf, and left it on the foyer table. No note, no threat, just the truth. That evening, I swept the porch and watered the patch of earth where the lavender used to grow. It was bare now, just soil and mulch, but I had already bought new plants. I didn't want to erase them. I just wanted to restore what had always been here. Later that night, I sat in the living room with the lights off, listening to the house breathe. It was different without them, quieter but not lonely. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the hallway clock, the rustle of trees outside, all familiar, all grounding. For the first time in weeks, I felt the floor steady beneath me. There was nothing dramatic about it. No flames, no shouting. Just a house slowly returning to its shape. And me sitting in the center of it, waiting with patience, not fear. They would come back soon, I knew that. But this time the locks would turn for me, not for them. And the paper on the table would be waiting. A quiet declaration in my mother's words in black ink. The house is yours. Do not let them rewrite the story. The SUV pulled into the driveway, late Sunday afternoon tires crunching against the gravel with a sound that felt louder than usual. I stood in the front hallway, calm, ready. The porch light was already on, casting a soft glow across the entryway and over the sealed envelope resting on the table beside me. 3 suitcases sat near the curb. One of them was mine originally. The navy one I had taken to college. I had found it in the garage, used and repurposed, now labeled Rachel in marker across the tag. The car doors opened in sequence. Rachel stepped out first, phone still in hand, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She looked up at the house, squinting slightly, and then froze. The door was closed. The lock had changed. She reached for the handle and twisted. It didn't budge. Her voice rose quickly, sharp and indignant. "What the John?" "The door's locked." My father stepped out from the passenger side, blinking into the sun, already weary. He moved more slowly than she did always, a step behind. Lily climbed out of the backseat, earbuds and dragging a glitter-covered duffel bag. She didn't say anything, just watched. Rachel pounded the door with her open palm. "Nicole," she shouted, "open the door. Right now." I waited 2 beats, then pulled it open. She didn't smile. Neither did I. "Hi," I said simply. "What is going on?" she demanded, pushing toward the threshold. "Why doesn't my key work? Why are our things in the garage?" I didn't step aside, because the locks have been changed and your things are packed, labeled in perfect condition. Rachel blinked, then scoffed, "Excuse me." Behind her, my father shifted his weight, silent. His hands hung awkwardly by his sides. Lily stayed near the car, watching but not moving. "You don't get to do this," Rachel snapped. "You don't get to lock us out of our home." I didn't raise my voice. "This is my home," I said. "It always was. You were guests, and now your stay is over." Rachel's expression twisted disbelief mingling with fury. "This is absurd. We've lived here for over a year. We've maintained this house, paid the bills, covered the repairs." "And none of that changes ownership," I said, stepping back just enough to pick up the envelope on the table. I held it out to her. Inside, neatly stacked, were 3 documents, the notarized will the deed in my name and my mother's letter. Rachel didn't take it. So I opened it myself slowly and held up the top page. "This is the original deed, notarized and witnessed, transferring full ownership to me. No clauses, no contingencies. The house is mine." I flipped to the next sheet. "This is the will. It was updated and filed 6 weeks before my mother died. It overrides any previous claims. You were never included." And then I placed the letter on top of the stack. And this is her reminder that just because someone speaks louder doesn't mean they're right. Rachel looked at the papers like they were in another language. "You're doing this because you're bitter," she spat, "because you think I stole something from you. You were gone for 4 years. You weren't here. We built a life here while you chased yours somewhere else." I nodded once. Yes, I left to build something, and now I've come back to protect what's mine. Rachel stepped forward close enough to stand in my space, but I didn't move. "You are selfish," she said. "This was supposed to be Lily's safe place. You're tearing this family apart." From behind her, my father finally spoke. "Rachel," he said softly, "stop." She turned to him, stunned. "Are you just going to let her—" "She's right," he said, eyes on the ground. "This house was never ours." Rachel opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Lily walked forward slowly, her eyes flicking between the 3 of us. She stopped at the bottom of the porch stairs. "Can I just get my stuff?" I nodded. "It's in the box with your name. In the garage, I'll open the side door." Rachel stared at me, her face unreadable now. The fury was there, but something else was rising beneath it. Not guilt, not understanding. Just disbelief. That I had done it. That I hadn't begged, hadn't yelled, hadn't broken down. I had simply changed the locks and waited for the doorbell to ring. As Rachel turned to follow Lily around to the garage, my father lingered for a moment. He looked at me with something close to shame. "I never wanted this to happen like this," he murmured. "I know," I said, "but you let it." He gave a small nod, then walked away. I closed the door behind them. Not with triumph, not with anger. Just with certainty. And before I turned off the porch light, I taped one thing to the inside of the door. A single sheet of paper. The deed. With my name clear and centered. Nicole Elaine Harper. Owner. No more room for guests. It didn't happen all at once. The peace came slowly, like light filtering through a window you haven't cleaned in years. The morning after they left, I stood in the hallway and listened. No footsteps, no distant vacuum, no passive-aggressive whispers from the kitchen. Only stillness. And in that stillness, I found something I hadn't felt in a long time space. The first thing I did was sweep the porch. I took my time. Leaves that had gathered in corners were brushed away. The old broom creaked with every pass like it remembered what the front step used to feel like when it belonged to us. I went to the nursery on 4th Street and bought 6 small lavender plants. They were young, no blooms yet, but I knew how to care for them. I remembered the exact distance my mother used to space them out the way she lined the garden bed with her thumb pressed into the dirt like a ruler. I planted them quietly, pressing the soil around the roots with bare hands. The scent hadn't returned yet, but it would. I opened the windows. Every room I let the wind move through the house like breath, like release. The next day, I took the ceramic teacups down from the high shelf in the kitchen Mom's collection. They'd been pushed into a box marked fragile and tucked in the garage behind a stack of Rachel's unused party supplies. I washed each one carefully, pale pink mint green soft ivory. A few had cracks now, but they still held their shape. I hung them on the hooks above the sink where they'd always belonged. The sound of ceramic tapping against metal was soft but sure, like they knew they were home again. Later that week, I walked through every room with a trash bag and a donation box. I filled them slowly. Throw pillows I never liked. Wall art with quotes that didn't mean anything to me. A rug that had never felt warm under my feet. Gone. In their place, I brought in quiet things. A woven throw blanket Mom kept in the linen closet, a stack of old books from the attic, a photo of us on the back porch, her arm around my shoulder, both of us squinting into the sun. For days, I didn't speak much. I made tea in the morning. I worked remotely from the dining table. I played soft music in the evenings while I cooked. And gradually the silence stopped feeling empty. It started to feel whole. 2 weeks later, I invited a few friends over. Nothing elaborate. Just tea and pastries on a Saturday afternoon. I set the table with the good cups, the ones Mom used to bring out for her book club. I put fresh lavender in a mason jar and set it in the center. They arrived just after 3, all of them bringing something scones a fruit tart. Someone brought homemade jam in a little glass jar wrapped in twine. We sat on the porch. We talked, we laughed. And at some point, I heard my own voice rise louder than it had in months, laughter without caution, without the urge to shrink back. They didn't ask about the family. They didn't need to. They just showed up and I let them in. When they left, I stood at the edge of the porch and watched the lavender plants sway in the evening breeze. The scent had started to return. Just faintly, but enough. That night, I opened the drawer in my mother's desk. Inside was the manila folder, the deed, the will, her letter. I took the deed and slipped it into a simple black frame. No embellishment, just the paper and my name. I set it beside the photo of her smiling sunlit, still holding everything together even now. And I whispered a thank you, not because I had won, but because I had made it through. The halls were quiet again. But this time the silence didn't ache. It settled. It breathed. It belonged. And for the first time in years, so did I. If you're ever questioned again about what you deserve, about what's yours, about whether your silence means surrender, let me tell you something I learned too late, and just in time. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's self-preservation. Sometimes it's the only thing keeping you from falling apart while you figure out what the next right step is. But silence is not the same as consent, and being quiet doesn't mean you're okay. For a long time, I thought that if I didn't cause trouble, if I stayed polite, if I gave people the benefit of the doubt, even when they didn't deserve it, I'd earn my place. I thought I could soften the edges of someone else's entitlement just by making myself smaller. But shrinking doesn't buy you safety. It just makes it easier for someone else to fill the space you've left behind. I used to think family meant loyalty without conditions, that even if people disappointed you, you owed them the best version of yourself just because you shared a last name or a memory. But here's what I know now. Family isn't who shares your house, it's who respects your boundaries in it. It's not who calls you daughter, sister, niece, it's who listens when you say no and hears you when you're quiet. And sometimes family is the people who knock and wait to be invited in. The hardest part for me wasn't changing the locks, it wasn't boxing up their things or placing the deed on the table. It was letting go of the guilt they hoped I would carry. There's a certain kind of manipulation that hides behind kindness. It dresses itself up in phrases like "we were just helping" or "you were too busy" or "this was the plan all along." And when you finally speak up, when you draw the line, you become the problem. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you stopped making yourself easy to take from. I've learned to pay attention to what people expect you to give without ever asking if you're okay with giving it. That's where the line is. And once I saw that line clearly, I never let anyone step over it again. If you're in a place right now where your name has been forgotten, where your voice feels like it echoes into nothing, I want you to know this. You do not have to explain yourself to those who built comfort on your silence. You do not have to prove your worth to people who never made room for it. And you are not selfish for reclaiming what was always meant for you. Maybe it's a house, maybe it's a role in the family, maybe it's your own voice long buried beneath other people's needs. Whatever it is, you have a right to take it back. And when you do, you don't have to raise your voice. You can let the truth speak. You can let the paper trail speak, the emails, the documents, the names on the deed, the signatures that match your own. Because clarity doesn't need volume. It just needs courage. I used to believe that being the easy one in the family was something to be proud of. I thought restraint was a virtue. But now I understand the power of saying, "No, this ends here." That kind of boundary doesn't destroy families. It exposes what was already broken. And from there, you get to decide what you rebuild. In my home now, the framed will sits beside a photo of my mother near the window where the light is strongest in the morning. The deed is no longer locked in a drawer. It's not hidden away as a defense. It's just a reminder, a quiet fact, a line no one can cross. The lavender has started to bloom again. Not just outside, but in me. So if they ever question you again, if they call you ungrateful or cold or dramatic, just remember, you are not obligated to make others comfortable at the expense of your own clarity. You are not unkind for choosing peace. And you are not lost for walking away from people who never saw you standing right in front of them. My mother once told me, "Never hand over the keys to someone who sees you as a guest." I didn't understand it then, but I do now. And I hope you do too. Because once you stop apologizing for taking up space in your own life, you'll realize something. The door was always yours to close. And more importantly, yours to open when you're ready. Nicole's story is not just about reclaiming a house. It's about reclaiming her voice, her space, and her sense of self. What began as quiet compliance became quiet strength. She was overlooked, underestimated, and treated like a guest in her own life. But with clarity and calm conviction, she chose herself. No anger, no revenge, just truth, proof, and the courage to close the door behind her. This journey reminds us that you don't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the strongest act is standing firm without apology, and sometimes peace looks like lavender, returning to bloom in a garden no one thought you would tend again. If this story moved you, we invite you to share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to quietly fight for what was already yours? Like, comment, or subscribe for more stories that honor resilience, clarity, and the strength of those who refuse to be erased.